Sean, here's a startling stat for you. There are more than 25,000 people in New Jersey prisons, and each prisoner costs us, the taxpayers, $24,000 a year.
And Brenda, not only do those costs keep rising, but every facility in the state is overcrowded. It is a system under constant pressure with only one pressure valve, parole. But there's a problem with the parole system. Fewer than 325 parole officers are keeping tabs on more than 45,000 former killers, thieves, and drug addicts.
The plan drill is to conduct what we would call routine home visits on parolees living in Jersey City.
Walter.
Yes.
I want to come in and see you.
Come on.
You got to open the door.
This your new place?
You still living here, right? And you know where that's at, right? You sure? It's the third time I'm talking to you about it now.
They did the crime, they did the time. Now they're doing parole. Back on the street, they need a scoutmaster, a guardian angel, someone to watch over them while they learn to walk the line. That's where Sean Asay and Regina Driver come in. They're parole officers in Jersey City.
We've got two jobs out here, I guess. One is to try to get people who've come from prison or jail to live out here amongst us successfully. If they don't, the other job is to show up as the cop and bring them back to jail.
But the job is harder than ever before. The typical caseload for every New Jersey parole officer is between 80 and 100 parolees. A decade ago, it was 60.
It's 5:30 in the evening. What are they doing this evening? Are they working? Are they in counseling? Are they doing all the things they're supposed to be doing?
They wear bulletproof vests. They pack 40 caliber Smith & Wesson semi-automatics. They won't need either one as long as everything goes right.
We only deal with convicted felons, so we know that they're capable of engaging in criminal activity.
Just after dark, they arrive at the Curry Woods projects in the Greenville section of Jersey City.
Usually his mother's here. The fact that John's not here doesn't surprise me that much. But he didn't report, and he has a habit of not reporting when he's supposed to. So we'll be back here again until we find out where he is.
You got to go see Mr. Shipman, take care of business. Otherwise, you know what time it is, right? Time to go clink, clink.
Officer Driver fears Jeffrey is falling back into his old ways, smoking marijuana. She's pushing him to register for counseling. If he doesn't, her prognosis?
Not too good. Not too good. If he comes in on the next visit without the registration form, he's going to have a problem.
You learn how to read people, and you know which ones you can supervise a little less and which ones you're going to have to be there every couple of days checking on them.
If they're wrong, things can go bad very quickly. In February, Robert Mudman Simon, a murderer on parole from Pennsylvania, moved to New Jersey. Mudman wound up killing a New Jersey cop during a traffic stop in South Jersey. And then this summer, Darnell Collins, on parole in Atlantic City, broke his parole by murdering 7 people in New Jersey and New York before cops killed him in Nutley, New Jersey.
Did he tell you about the other charge that he got? No. God.
James is on thin ice. Paroled after doing time for a drug conviction, he's recently been arrested again. James's mother says she believes the parole officers are trying to help her son.
And how's he doing?
So far, so good, as far as I know. His mom didn't know about the other charge either. So she believes that, and he's really giving it an effort, but he's not really, he's like stuck in the between, you know? He don't know whether he should do good or do bad. He wants to get out of here because he thinks the problem is this location. The problem is within himself. He's not taking responsibility.
Officer Driver is working to get Walter into a drug program.
So to my future, how important is she? She's very important. Because if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be able to get into the program. You know, she done me a favor that I need that will probably change the rest of my life.
Well, Governor Whitman has appointed a special board to look into the parole system. The board will make recommendations about what needs to change.
Eyewitness News discovering sexual predators with their own web pages on the popular teen website MySpace. And now our investigation prompting the New Jersey Division of Parole to get involved. The investigator is Jim Hoffer here now with his exclusive report. Jim?
Bill and Liz, the operators of MySpace have been saying for months that they're cracking down on sex offenders using their site. But it took us just a few hours to find numerous predators who served time in prison, now spending time on MySpace. This is you, correct? On the MySpace? Yeah. This registered sex offender spent nearly 2.5 years in prison for sexually assaulting 2 girls, one under the age of 13. His profile was on the Sex Offender Internet Registry. He also has a profile on MySpace, the popular online hangout for teens. Do you understand why some parents might be concerned that you're on MySpace, considering your history?
I can understand it. I don't outreach to anybody really on there. People outreach to me.
Douglas Oates also has a MySpace page where he describes himself as sexy and looking for new relationships. But it was his relationship with a 9-year-old boy that got him listed on the Sex Offender Registry as a Level 3 offender, the most serious. This person's 14 years old. He's listed as your friend. Oates insists he's never met any minors on MySpace, and he says he uses it mostly to communicate with his family.
I never met nobody on there.
What would you say to parents who have their kids go on here to MySpace?
I would say if anybody go on MySpace, you make sure your kids is meeting the right person.
It's like putting a pedophile loose in a park. This is where all the kids are.
Last year, Sergeant John Cowie in the Computer Crimes Unit at the Suffolk County Police Department caught Andrew Lebrano communicating with minors on MySpace, even though he had served 9 years for sexually abusing 2 boys. After the MySpace arrest, Lebrano pled guilty to endangering the welfare of a child.
Sex predator is that's where they're going to go shopping. That's where the kids are. It's like I said, it's putting a pedophile into a candy store.
These are some of the registered sex offenders that we found on the MySpace website. The New Jersey Division of Parole seemed troubled by our investigation, promising to do one of their own.
The kind of information you're giving us, if these people are under our supervision, we're going to act on it. We're going to investigate it. What are they doing on this site and trying to interact on a site where they know it's young people?
In a statement to Eyewitness News, the head of security for MySpace said they are committed to keeping sex offenders off MySpace and will delete profiles of convicted offenders they are made aware of. The security chief adding, "We have developed tools to proactively identify and remove any registered sex offenders and are now in the process of reviewing 175 million profiles against all potential matches." But it took us just a few hours to find the websites of numerous sex offenders on MySpace, sites that remain active, except for one.
I never met nobody off of there.
Shortly after confronting him, this offender closed his MySpace profile. Do you think that sex offenders, those who are on the sex offender registry, should be allowed on MySpace?
No, they shouldn't.
Well, that's you, sir. MySpace says it has launched technology that can screen out registered sex offenders, but as recently as this afternoon, we found more sexual predators with profiles on MySpace. Now, if you have a tip about this or any other story, please give our tip line a call at 877-TIP-NEWS. You can also email us at the.investigators@abc.com. The sex offenders, Bill and Liz, that we found on MySpace were using their real names. Who knows how many people are out there using aliases?
It is something, frankly, as a parent, it's what I worry about with my teenage kids, and it's something that I think a lot of parents worry about. And what's most troubling is that, I mean, you're a good reporter, but you're not a security expert. How long did it take you? A couple hours?
Within hours, we were able to find over a dozen.
So why isn't MySpace doing the same thing? That's the real question.
175 million profiles that they have to go through?
They say they are doing aggressively as they can. They have new technology out there that they're trying to implement, but the question is, how effective is it?
Not
Jim,
very, apparently.
no.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Well, it might seem like a simple idea, but police in Irvington, New Jersey, along with state parole officers, are about to launch what may be a first-in-the-nation crime-fighting partnership. As New Jersey reporter Brian Thompson tells us, it's all about teaming up police and parole officers.
No one really has an identification badge around their neck, so Irvington Police Lieutenant Stephen McNally on patrol, talking about the more than 120 parolees out on the streets of his city, next door to Newark. And for the first, but not the last time, as of today, a parole officer from the State Parole Board, in this case Sergeant Bill Smith, is riding shotgun. A new partnership has been formed.
And if they see this guy or this individual out on the street on the corner at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they know he has a curfew, that's something they would want to alert us to, because that's a potential parole violation.
At City Hall, the City and State Parole Board signed this apparently first ever in the nation partnership to work together to keep tabs on parolees. Police Chief Michael Chase.
Bad guys know bad guys. They know what you went to jail for. They know when you get out. They know who your family is. They know what you did.
With more than half of parolees committing new crimes after they get out of jail, parole officers should get a new weapon during home visits.
To sit there with a uniformed local police officer, I think it has a dramatic psychological impact, saying, hey, they're really looking very closely at me.
While Lieutenant McNally says parole officers will also be able to offer tips to police looking into crimes, there's also the hope parole officers will be better able to guide parolees to needed services like health care or recreation.
These are things that strain a person that, if he doesn't have a way of learning how to navigate the society, sometimes forces them into their old habits.
Irvington is a sort of ground zero when it comes to crime fighting in New Jersey. State police having assigned several troopers here just a few years ago. And that paid off because the overall crime rate has dropped. Now the hope is it'll drop even more. In Irvington, Brian Thompson, News Channel 4.
Tonight at 6:15, a high-tech tool to keep tabs on sex offenders in New Jersey. It provides continuous, real-time tracking of high-risk offenders. The equipment has already been used in a pilot program, and now the governor has made it permanent, but some worry it could be abused.
In New Jersey, the parole board is using high-tech tools to fight crime. Satellites track the movements of sex offenders 24 hours a day, and a new report shows it's working.
Sex offenders make up nearly a third of New Jersey's State Parole Board's caseload.
15, 20 years ago, you were hard-pressed to find people talking about tracking sex offenders. But the mother of a little girl who was right here, who was murdered right here by a pedophile who was living with 2 other pedophiles back in 1994, well, she went to bat, she got Megan's Law, and now she is very happy that this GPS system is going to be in place permanently.
That lets us know that, the worst of the worst that they've released from prison, are monitored.
The GPS monitoring system is a high-tech way to keep an eye on criminals who are likely to commit another crime. When the sex offenders get out of prison, they have to wear an ankle bracelet and a tracking device.
This is the tracking device. Requires a daily charge. Gives the offender a display, lets them know if we need to talk to them, we'll send them a message.
The system sends signals every few seconds, tracking exactly where they are and how fast they're moving.
So all that data is at the officer's fingertips anytime they need it to take a look at where their offender has been.
The sex offenders know Big Brother is watching and recording their every movement, and that is a big deterrent. The New Jersey Parole Board says it's forcing dangerous criminals to control their behavior.
We're funded for up to 250 in this particular fiscal year. We have 170 that are active. We know that there are about 40 Tier 3 offenders in custody right now. So at any time any court releases any of them, they'll immediately go on the program.
Our concern is that we don't want to see this program slip into those who may not be as great a risk.
But that's exactly what Kanka says she wants.
Nobody has that crystal ball to determine who is a Tier 1 that is going to turn into a Tier 3. No one knows that for sure.
These high-risk sex offenders are in the program for life, unless the court removes them from Tier 3 status or they move out of state.
Since New Jersey started using GPS to track sex offenders, there's only been one case of an offender committing a new sex crime. That rate is much lower than nationwide.
State Parole Board's preliminary data suggests that GPS monitoring is contributing to a lower recidivism rate than the nationwide data indicates for high-risk sex offenders.
The GPS data is also useful in criminal investigations by the State Parole Board and other law enforcement agencies.
We get data
that's both contemporaneous, telling us where they are at the moment whenever we make that request, and also recording that data. And we store that data for 3 years so that if there's an incident, we can go back with our law enforcement partners and look at that data.
The State Parole Board will continue to measure the success of the program and keep track of new GPS technology to possibly adopt into the system. Within the next several months, the agency will begin to use polygraph testing for sex offenders as part of their supervision efforts.
How do you feel about it personally? You think it's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea. I think New Jersey has demonstrated, as some other states have, that as part of a wraparound approach, what we call a containment approach with sex offenders, that this is an important piece. Along with that intensive supervision, we're introducing polygraph into our supervision regimen. So all those pieces together, we think can do the job.
Does rehabilitation play a part in any way?
Absolutely. We also have in our approach therapy, counseling, both individual and group counseling, that we've partnered with some other agencies where we're helping offenders who can't necessarily afford that counseling to get in there and be in those individual and group settings with professionals, with a hope towards we can make them at least less dangerous.
Because like alcohol or drugs, something like this has been called an addiction, where a person will carry it around with them for the rest of their life.
Right, right. And that's why in the way that we use drug and alcohol testing for some offenders, we can use things like polygraph to rule in and out offenders in these cases.
All right, Captain, thanks for being here.
I think the public should be aware that we're on top of the situation, and they should relax and know that it's our responsibility to know where these people are, and we do know.
Now to a story you'll only see right here. New Jersey parole officers have come up with ways to manage convicted sex offenders and keep them honest.
Officers say that lie detectors are helping offenders to come clean about if they're really staying away from potential victims. Tiwa Chang has more in this My 9 News exclusive.
When sex offender Morgan DeGeorge, convicted of endangering children, was arrested in June, he'd already cut off his GPS tracking device, arguing he was no longer dangerous. Then he threatened an officer for pulling down his T-shirt.
If I ever see you again in my life, I swear to God.
Parole officers believe DeGeorge's escape might have been spotted earlier if it had been in December, when officers began using this.
This is sweating in the fingertips.
Lie detectors. This man is a parole board employee wired to demonstrate the new laptop computer polygraphs. They still measure breath, blood pressure, heartbeat, and skin to determine if someone is lying. Since parole officers only test convicted felons, legal admissibility is not key, as explained to law enforcement personnel at a conference yesterday.
Results of a polygraph examination are not to be used as evidence in court.
What is key is discovering during polygraph testing at parole offices if the offender is lying. Parole officers say a truth device is needed for sex offenders.
They spend a lot of their lives being very deceptive.
New Jersey supervises one of the highest number of sex offenders in the country, 4,600. The main reason, says the State Parole Board, is because New Jersey has lifetime supervision of convicted sex offenders. That's why the lie detector is such an important tool, because of that large number of sex offenders.
When a sex offender was released from prison, we received information.
This Newark high school teacher welcomes the lie detector use.
As a school teacher, that everyone wants to know where these individuals are located at all times, and that there will be some kind of extra measure taken to make sure that these individuals are not out and about and close by where our children are located.
Even proponents admit lie detectors are still believed inaccurate 10% of the time. And defense attorneys have argued lie detector tests violate sex offenders' constitutional right against self-incrimination. But parole officers say just the threat of using a lie detector convinces some sex offenders to admit guilt, the first step in really changing. Tiwa Chang, My 9 News.